We have had 5 lakeshore floods now. This picture is my side yard. Shows you what it looks like when there's flood water in the yard and then it snows. Then I was driving along Lake Erie and saw these clouds moving in, and I said, I've got to pull over and record them. This was after our snow melted and they called for rain, and boy, was it a pretty show in the clouds that day. In fact, after I recorded this little snippet, probably 3 minutes later down the road, the clouds opened up and it was a torrential downpour. Rained like crazy. I could barely see to drive. It only lasted maybe 5 minutes. And that night, I believe, it snowed again. And so has our weather been going so far. Snow, and then it melts. Then we get some rain and some ice. Then it snows. Then it melts. And last night we got a dusting of snow, but more is on the way. We get what they call lake effect snow, which is usually very nasty. It comes down with such force and wind that you can't see to drive. But for the moment, it's just cold and blustery out there. On to the video. Good morning, everybody out there in YouTube land. Back again. What's been going on? Oh, look who decides she has to talk when I'm on the computer. Come here. See, she is needy today. I don't know what it is, but everywhere I go, she's been following me and she's talking up a storm. Meow, 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 right? Now she's happy. She's sitting here with me for a minute until she finds something else to get into. Hey, you're distracting me. Anyway, my last video, or one of my last videos, I can't remember. Time is going by like molasses. The hospital I work at announced that the hospital would be closing by January 1st. Since then, what happened was apparently blah, 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 red tape, government, blah, blah. The behavior unit and the emergency room have remained open until they do some kind of a big meeting in which pretty much everybody said after the meeting, then they're going to say, all right, okay, now you can close. But in the meantime, everything else closed. The outpatient services, the cardiac unit, the imaging for outpatients, phlebotomy for outpatients, chemical dependency unit, just pretty much the only thing open over there now is the ER where I work and the behavioral health unit. And the meeting to determine whether or not they can shut that down is January 16th. There's been a lot of speculation and rumors going on about will we be left open? Is somebody going to buy it? Blah, 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 blah. In the meantime, we are dwindled down to very few people are left working there. Majority of people have left, gone on to find other jobs. Myself, I have not. The job that I did apply for, I didn't get. They hired someone else and didn't even acknowledge my application. So I'm still working at the hospital, and I could be at my last, what is today? Today's Sunday the 5th. It's like 2 weeks left to possibly work. In the meantime, there was a lot of openings, so they asked if I would help cover some of them, and I picked up an extra shift a week, so I'll be doing 3 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off until the doors close, which they think is going to be announced on January 16th. Meanwhile, it's been difficult to get pumped up to be excited about the things that I normally am excited about, which is my crafts. But I still do them because if you just sit around and mope, man, depression really can just suffocate you. So I have been working on the wooden chest. I've been crocheting for my one granddaughter's blanket. And then I've got the parts back from Outlaw Edge Blade Works for the mini lathe, which I have to work on to see if I can get them to be usable on the mini lathe. He worked so hard to make them. And so I'm going to see if I can file them and make them usable. What else have I... show you those gourds, which were plain regular gourds right up until I looked at them every day, go by them. They were green. They didn't start to get moldy. They didn't start to age until today. I looked at them like, oh my God, they're covered in mold, and suddenly they're not green, they're brown. So I had to quick take care of them, and I'll show you that on the video. So that's enough blabbing. In the meantime, I'll show you why I've said several times that I can't use the big lathe, which I haven't used it. I bought it in, I don't know, July. Haven't used it once yet. The parts that I need to use on it, I don't have. And it's a good thing I didn't try buying them, or I would have really been in the hole more than whatever. So, yeah, today and the future is not spending days for me anymore, because I have to hang on to everything, because once the door's shut, I still have bills but not a job. Everybody says, well, what about unemployment? I already make barely anything. I'm like poverty level. And then what you get from unemployment is not enough to pay my rent and my bills. The job fair I went to was mostly for professionals. I'm not a professional. I'm an aide. They call us a patient care technician. And some people call it a patient care aide. I just happen to do things that most aides do not, because that's how they trained us. I draw blood from people. Most aides don't do that. I do EKGs, I do cardiac monitors and telemetry. Most aides don't do that. Again, that's the job responsibility they gave us and trained us for, but they never gave us a title that changes. So the most close to what I do is a medical assistant. But for that, you have to have a certification from having completed the training at school, which we did not. We were trained on the job. So I'm in a rock and a hard place. Basically, what do? I do lots of things, but I'm not a nurse. I'm not a phlebotomist. I'm not a cardiologist technician at all. So my opportunities for jobs where I am at, within a reasonable driving distance for me, is really limited. In fact, people keep sending me posts. You gotta get down. She's clawing me. Send me posts for jobs that are minimum wage. This one place, they keep sending it to me. It's a retirement home. I called them and spoke to them, and it was $9 and something an hour. Granted, I only make 13 something now, but at least I can pay my bills with the 13. Imagine trying to do it with only 9. It's not possible. And so all these other things that I normally would have done by now, which was ordered more belts and ordered those parts for the lathe and mailed out my beeswax to the people I want to send it to, and not going to happen. None of that's going to happen. It's a question of survival. It's going to be a while before I see a light on the horizon. So I just keep plugging along, and hopefully something's going to pan out here. But in the meantime, watch the video. Enough of this blah, 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 blah stuff. Camera was acting up today. I don't know why. But anyway, here's the birdhouse gourds. You can see the mold and mildew is growing on them now. Black and discolored spots. And there's white, actually, on the other one. Those white patches are big, thick spots of mold growing. And now what I do is get out the bleach, spray them, and scrub them with a wire brush. And as many times as I have to during the winter, that's what I'll do. At some point, they'll dry, become nice and hard, and I'll make a birdhouse out of them. This is one I made prior. I had a family of little wrens living in there this summer. So, yep, that's what they look like after they've been scrubbed. All the mold is gone. Got to scrub them a little bit more, but I just wanted you to see all that white stuff that was growing on the side of them. Big patches is all scraped off now. I'll let it dry, and then if it grows again, I'll scrape it off again with the bleach and that wire brush. Doing a lot of sanding on this wooden chest and filling in spots with wood putty, which is just sawdust mixed with wood glue and a little water. You can see in here I've slathered it in the openings on the end here. It's hard as a rock, and then I sand it. Let me show you this other end that I've already been working on. So the openings are full, and it's sanded nice. And that's what I've been doing, going around on both pieces. I disconnected the hinges and the latch so I could handle them easier to sand with. And it's just a question of continuing to sand them, because remember, it was really warped wood. It was green wood, and it was pretty warpy. But I figured I could put everything together and do some sanding, and it would look pretty decent. And so far it's looking really, really good. A lot more sanding to go, but then I run into sanding issues. My sanding situation is kind of sad. Right now I'm using this orbital sander. It seems to be the best one. I go through the pads pretty quick. That's a pack of 5. I think they were 50 grit or 60 grit, whichever they were. And I'm going to have to get a couple more packs, I'm sure. The belt sander, yeah, not so much. I went through the belts. They just kept popping off, popping off. I don't know what the deal was. I tried gluing them and putting them back together, but they would break again. So there's all my belts that came flying off the sander. See how good I am aiming the camera. What the heck am I looking at? Come on now. Put that camera up where it's supposed to be. Yeah, barely got to sand that one, and poof, it came flying off. So, yeah, that's not working out for me with the chest, so I'm using that orbital sander. It works a lot better. This is the lathe that I bought this summer that I have not even used yet. The reason being, the piece that came with it is for making bowls. It's this plate that screws on over there to the stem, and you can make bowls. But I also wanted to be able to make spindle type objects, etc. And for that, this is where a Nova chuck would screw onto, or a drive spur. I have neither. On this end, this is where it screws into the other end of whatever you're going to put on the lathe, and it's missing a live center. Now, a live center isn't very much money. It's only like $20-something. The Nova chuck is about $140, possibly a couple of bucks less. But for someone who is about to lose their job, it could be $500. It makes no difference to me. It's something I cannot get now. I kept wanting to get it. Something just always came up, and I was unable to buy it. So there sits the lathe, waiting for me to someday get the parts. Now here's the baby lathe. This is the part that holds it's the drive spur. Drive spur sits right there in that spindle. But this, it's kind of hard to focus, is missing all the points off the ends that would hold it into the wood. And of course, this camera's not going to focus. Story of my life. Anyway, what you would have to do is cut grooves into the wood. These points fit into those grooves and hold it in place while it spins. But since this is missing all its little points, I asked a friend of mine if he could make me one that still had points, and he tried hard. This is what he came up with, and I really appreciate the work he did. It's amazing that he takes time for me. Matt from Outlaw Edge Blade Works. He made this piece. It fits beautifully. The prongs on them, though, won't stick into the wood. I'd have to make really fat grooves to try to get this to stick into the piece. So what I've been trying to do is file those prongs that he did put on there so they'd be able to stick. I've been working on this for quite a while now. So there's supposed to be a prong in the center and then 4 on the outside that stick into that cross that you carve into the base of the wood. The other piece that he made me, which is really cool, this is a mini for doing like bowls. But the problem is you can see, let's see if we can do this. This is the original piece. This screws onto the stem, and the whole part of this goes like onto the stem. And then this is the one he made me. So you can see there's a difference in the length of the stem. What happened was where he welded it, he kind of mounted it up, and it actually is only that much is going onto the thread, and it kind of spun itself into the machine and almost welded itself in there. I managed to get it off, and then I figured out what the problem was, and I've been trying to file back rather, the weld to try to make more space on that stem. So you can see when I put the original piece next to it, the length is perfect, but because of that mounted area, it's hitting the machine and it won't turn, it won't go onto the spindle like it's supposed to. Only this much of it is. The rest of this is being hit on that weld, so then that's what I'm trying to do, is file it back, see if I can file it down enough to get it on there and not drop the plate off of it. So that's the project I'm doing. It takes forever to file that, but I'm working on it a little at a time, and I'm hopeful it will work at some point. And yep, I'm working on another blanket for one of the grandkids. This one's for Cadence. A friend gave me a bunch of leftover yarn, all sorted colors, that she wasn't going to use. So I started crocheting them into long scarf-like lengths, which I'm going to attach all together. It's going to be a multicolored blanket, but Cadence doesn't care.